You got it.
Oh wait, can you present it in Teams?
Thank you.
All right, can you see it?
I can see it. And it looks like it'll let me take control too.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much. We got that
No
figured out. I
problem.
still need to figure out why the Mac is not letting me share my screen, but for later today. But this will be our our quick fix,
This
right?
will work for now. Yeah.
Yeah, this will work for now. Okay. Well, welcome everybody who's here. Good to see you guys again. So this particular topic is work-life balance. And I've got a little bit of content on just best practice and some ideas and implementation strategies, things like that. But I am also curious to hear from you guys, like your perspective about work-life balance and maybe what's worked at your organization or your location, or what you still struggle with or whatever, because I'd like maybe to use the latter half of the time that we have just to kind of maybe share ideas or get feedback or whatever on maybe some things that we've tried. And I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. So just letting somebody else in real quick. Okay. I think we'll go ahead and get started though. All right. So you guys know me again. Yeah, you get me. But obviously, work-life balance is one of the tenets of a best place to work, which again is the theme of this whole series, right? Of becoming a best place to work. But it's not just important for Kentucky as a state and kind of what we're doing as employers in this state to meet our employees' needs, but it's a cultural, societal issue, or the lack of work-life balance, I should say, is the issue. But I thought I would throw this out there before I talk about the Kentucky specific data that I have in the next slide. This is a national poll by Randstad. They just did it last year. But 66% of the American workforce did not have satisfactory work-life balance. And additionally, almost half identified as quote unquote workaholics, and 77% had experienced some semblance of workplace burnout. And at first I thought, oh, this data is going to look better, because I don't know about you all, but it seems to be post-pandemic. Some organizations have been able to, embrace things like hybrid work and things like that. So I thought the data would be better in more recent years, but it actually doesn't look that much better. It looks like people are still struggling with this as a whole. But for the purposes of Kentucky and the Kentucky statistics, this is last year's benchmark. There's only one item on the survey that asks specifically about personal life and work-life balance, but it's under a broader dimension of like culture and workplace satisfaction. So it's all about like meaningfulness in your job. How attached are you? How fulfilling do you feel the work is? How important do you feel like the work is? You get some personal satisfaction. And then one of the questions within that dimension is, I'm able to maintain a reasonable balance between my work and personal life. The Kentucky top scorers, those that made the best places to work, the average was 92%, but the Kentucky average for everybody that was participating was only 81%. So it's 11 point difference. It's not crazy drastic, but still, you'll see that 92% is a pretty still a pretty high bar, I guess, for making best places to work. So there's a lot of strategy and intentionality that's put into making work-life balance kind of a key principle that your organization kind of emphasizes for folks. So hopefully I'll give you some ideas. Might be able to pepper in some things that other clients that I've worked with have done when they've made best places to work. And then, like I said, I'd like to hear what you guys, any questions you guys have and or feedback or things that have worked for you guys as well. But the overarching thing is that, like, the reason that it's a part of that culture dimension in the survey is because work-life balance is one of those key indicators of whether or not your culture is quote unquote healthy or not, right? So I know I used Adam Grant as one of my sources last week or last time about change management or about communication as a principle, but he also has some words of wisdom around workaholism and work-life balance and all that stuff. But he says that in toxic cultures, being the workaholic is normal. It's normalized, and then in doing so, it's glorified, it's normalized. And then in a healthy culture that hopefully we're all aspiring to, the quality of life is what is the actual aspirational goal, right? That having a life is celebrated outside of work, and you're encouraged to put your well-being above your work. So, a tall order, because I know we're all probably pretty guilty of trying to prioritize everything that we've got to do in our day to day. But I think we've probably all been in or exposed to organizations where it's 24/7, always accessible, everything's urgent, and after a while that normalization of that thing, kind of those behaviors and those expectations, sort of starts to kind of eat away at people's morale and their overall energy and commitment and all those fun things. So there's a bigger reason, right, for organizations to try to prioritize work-life balance as a concept. But for employees, organizations that do prioritize work-life balance, there's been a noted reduction of stress and burnout. And one of the top contributors to that burnout is, of course, their perception around work-life balance and it being "quote unquote" poor. Mental health. I don't know about you all, but I've had more employee needs around mental health since the pandemic. I don't know if it's just less stigmatized. I don't know if it's the pandemic did something to us all. I don't know, but I've had more employees ask for and need and require, in some instances, more mental health assistance, or they're way more willing to talk about mental health than maybe they had been before. But people or employees that did feel like they had a good work-life balance, they're more than twice as likely to report they had some sort of positive mental health outcome. Higher job satisfaction too, and I think that's why probably Best Places kind of couples all that together in that meaning and purpose and culture kind of dimension within the survey. Because good work-life balance, usually people have higher job satisfaction and they tend to stay longer. And then, of course, increased productivity. People that had a high work-life balance so that they had worked 21% harder than those with a poor balance. So we all are about discretionary effort, right, and getting more out of people. And then for the employers themselves, you can see, positive impacts for the organization overall. Lower turnover, obviously, 25% lower turnover that for companies that did promote work-life balance as a concept. Improved performance overall. So the organizations that did encourage some sort of work-life balance outperform competitors by up to 20%. Attracting talent. I know that obviously finding good people is also a real struggle, right? And once we find them, we need to keep them. But that Glassdoor study just from 2 years ago was that 70% of all job seekers were considered work-life balance to be the top priority or a top priority when choosing a job. And then reduced absenteeism. And I think that, if we can have some sort of flexible work options, hopefully people are going to be out less and able to still perform and get their needs met as well. So all your business case, all the things you may need to take to your leadership teams when you want to talk about this as a concept. There is a business case and it is bottom line oriented. So I just want to talk about some work-life balance strategies, and I've got a clip from a TED University. It's the TED Talk, TED University, and got a clip about how we can individually try to implement some work-life balance strategies on the individual level, but then also at the organizational level. So I've got this quick clip to show of hold on. Can you all hear that? Can someone give me the thumbs up emoji or something or comment? No? Can you hear it?
No, I don't hear it.
Okay.
Which slide is it on? Maybe I can share it from my end.
It's slide 8.
For so many of us, myself included, our days feel filled with a million small interruptions. And this is true even of our days off. Maybe you've taken a call at the beach, texted your boss from the grocery store, or emailed a call.
You hear?
Yes, we can hear. At first, I was like, is that an advertisement? But it's not. I hear you now. It's her.
While on a picnic with your family. We've convinced ourselves that these behaviors are no big deal. It's just one email. But there's a real cost to these interruptions, and there are smart strategies we can all take to better protect our time. These moments seem so small at the time, and yet research suggests they add up to a tremendous loss. The constant creep of work into our personal lives can increase our stress and undermine our happiness. So just what is the cost? In one study, researchers recruited parents who were visiting a science museum with their kids. Some parents were told to check their phone as much as possible. Others were told to check their phone as little as possible. After the visit, parents who used their phones reported that the experience was significantly less meaningful. They also felt much lonelier. In another study, tourists who were asked to have their phones out while visiting an iconic church remembered fewer details a week later. And in my research, employees who were paid for their performance spent increasingly less time interacting with friends and family, and more time interacting with colleagues and clients. These constant interruptions come at a cost to organizations too. Companies lose 32 days of productivity each year to employee depression, which is often caused by the stress and burnout of our always-on culture. Despite knowing better, I too have found myself focusing on urgent work distractions over important life moments. Most recently, I found myself texting a client while in the middle of my first child's first ultrasound. Happy client, guilty mom to be. When you add up all of these moments, the sum total is a life shortchanged on meaning, joy, connection, and even memory. As we remake our models of work in the wake of the pandemic, now is our opportunity to create a new culture that respects time. And the way to make this really big change is through small steps that we can take right now. The first step that we need to take is to reframe rest. Reflect for a moment about what you think about when you hear the word rest. Sounds amazing, right? But in my mind, I immediately worry about not being productive enough or letting down my colleagues. When we do have time off, we need to find ways in which we can enjoy the present moment and savor the leisure time that we have available, as opposed to seeing it as an unproductive barrier to our work. One specific strategy we can take is to treat our upcoming weekend like a vacation. On Friday afternoon, jot down how you would act and behave as if you were on a holiday. Maybe you and your partner will buy a bottle of wine and watch online clips of the Eiffel Tower. Maybe you'll visit a local cafe and listen to some live music. Or maybe you'll go for a long walk in the middle of the day with no phone and no agenda. The plan doesn't have to be expensive or extravagant. Another strategy you can take is to create clear boundaries for your time off. Instead of saying, I'm out of the office, feel free to Slack me whenever. Say, I'll be offline. Call me only if it's urgent. To uphold these personal goals, work together as a team. Set team goals for personal time. Do it publicly, collect data, and hold each other accountable. These goals could sound like, I will not check email between 6 and 8 p.m. I will have dinner with my family 4 nights a week, or I will go for a jog midday. Check in on your team's progress and see how everyone's doing. If you or your teammates are unsuccessful, work together to help accomplish personal goals. Lastly, you can negotiate for more time to prevent work from creeping into your personal life. In business school, I teach students to negotiate for salary, but realize I spoke almost nothing about negotiating for more time. What does this look like in practice? You can ask for more time on adjustable deadlines at work. If your client asks for a deliverable Monday morning, Ask for an extension until Tuesday afternoon so you don't find yourself working on your well-deserved weekend. And don't worry too much about reputation. Quality truly is the
Oh, did we lose everybody? You all there?
Yes. Is it the end of the video or it's just
I don't know. It just cut off. I'm not sure.
Uh-huh.
I think her last thought there was that research shows that quality is better than quality is the better indicator. So might as well take the delayed deadline or something. Anyway, my point was showing that, or well, trying to show it, was not all those strategies obviously may be applicable or easy for you to do as an individual, but I do think it's an individual effort as well as the organization's effort. And I know I really liked that the beginning part about just being present, when we are supposed to be off, just how distracted we can be when we're on our phones. And I know I certainly have, even as a tourist, right, use my phone to document things. And I swear, I agree. I think I remember less when I'm on my phone than if I just kind of experience it through my own eyes. And I do think there's that kind of accountability aspect of it too, amongst especially leadership, that if you're going to set expectations like work-life balance about when it's appropriate to email somebody, or when people are on a vacation, what is acceptable in terms of reaching out to people or whatever, even if we don't expect that of our teams. I have noticed in practice that most people still model their leader. So if the leader is, guilty of sending emails when they're on the beach, or, emailing or texting people from the air when they're on an airplane or whatever, it still kind of trickles down as the expectation, right? The expected or behavior that of others, whether or not that's intentional or not, it still is kind of a, people tend to mirror their direct leader. So if the leader is guilty of maybe not having the best boundaries around their work life and their vacations and their time away and their, other life activities, people kind of follow suit and how they tend to operate, for better or for worse, I guess, sometimes. So there is sort of that personal accountability and personal intentionality, I guess, around what we need to do. And then I think if you can stress that amongst your leadership groups, or try to set some sort of accountability measure in place with peers around, what does that look like when we're out of office, or we need to step aside and handle some other things. And I really wish I could delay every deadline, right? Sometimes that was, I don't know if that was the most practical advice of hers, but it was an interesting thought. It's like, well, I guess if you could get a little bit of an extension on something, that might free up your Sunday afternoon or something, so you can go do something else. But that's not always possible. So I guess I'm just as guilty of trying to do everything. But anyway, so thought that was interesting that there's the personal accountability, and that's what she was trying to stress there. But as an organization, these are just some ideas. Obviously, I would say probably pick and choose what'll work for you guys if you haven't considered these things. But that's why I'm kind of curious to hear what you guys have done, or maybe questions you have around things that you think you may need, so we can maybe talk about that, because obviously this isn't a one size fits all kind of approach. It's going to be based on the role and the type of organization and the schedule and the population or customer base that it meets or it serves or whatever. So it's a little bit different for every organization, but in general, these are some recommendations as to how to implement some better work-life balance through, a lot of policy development and just kind of those operational norms that we start to establish for our how we do our procedures. So if you can offer adjustable work hours, that's great. I know not every job can do that, but if you can offer some sort of adjusted start time or flex time, even, I don't know if you guys utilize anything like that, but I have a client that does up to 4 hours per pay period of flex time, that they don't make individuals take PTO or sick. They just let them do what they need to do in those 4 hours. And as long as it's longer than 4 hours, if it's dropping the kid off at I don't know, a soccer practice, or it's they've got the repairman coming on Thursday afternoon to fix the washer dryer, whatever it is, that flex time is kind of their time to use it per pay period, where they figure that they'll probably be able to make up that time. Now, obviously, that's in a situation where everybody's salaried. A little bit different if they're hourly, obviously trying to make that time up, but some sort of adjustable work hours or maybe some flex time opportunities. I don't know if compressed work weeks work for you guys in your locations, but I do have one client that has summer Fridays. So they work an abbreviated schedule during the summer months. I believe it's June, July, and the beginning part of August, basically when the kids are out of school. So then they just switch to longer 4-day work weeks that are a bit longer. They do 10-hour work days, Monday through Thursday, June, July, and August, so that everybody gets off on Friday. I've also had, which is not on, I don't think it's on here, but I also have one where the client doesn't have any meetings on Fridays. Like, as much as possible, they try not to schedule meetings on Fridays so that people can take their vacation, or they can leave early for, the lake or whatever, kind of all year round, truthfully. I mean, obviously there are exceptions to that rule, but and that's kind of the shift swapping to accommodate those personal needs. And then another one is if you do have like a holiday vacation bank or holiday policy, consider implementing some sort of floating holiday option for folks as well. If you don't, I think a lot of times it's nice. It's a nice thing for people to be able to use those days when they need to, as opposed to making them take the July 4th holiday, for instance, because there may be another holiday that's important to them, where they'd like to, repurpose that day, let's say, or I don't know, Memorial Day or something like that. I've had some folks that allow people to kind of swap and use those holidays when they need to. Let's see. If you guys have hybrid work options, I'm not sure. Do you guys have some ability to work hybrid still, or remote, or I don't know enough about your all's organization to know, because I think that's the biggest, kind of paradigm shift, I'd say, since the pandemic, which is why I said that earlier, that I was a little surprised that the statistics were still so bleak. That one study was just from 23 and 24. I would have thought that perhaps with the amount of remote and hybrid work options that are still out there for a lot of industries, that people would still feel like they had a better semblance of work-life balance. I know for a lot of folks, just the commute time not being there at the beginning and the end of every day saved them so much more time to spend at home with family, or exercising, or doing something close to a hobby, or taking the dog for a walk, or whatever all those things are that we try to fit in every day. And I know obviously we also lost a lot of that too. If we did go back to the office, we all have to start commuting again. And it really is a big chunk of our days. So if you have the ability to have, still offer some sort of remote or hybrid option, I certainly would. But do you guys offer anything? Somebody give me a thumbs up emoji or something, or a thumbs down or whatever, so I kind of know, because it may not be applicable. Yes, I see a hand up, so I think it says a yes. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I still think that employers that offer that are at any rate, because I have some clients that it's 2 or 3 days a week they work from home. I have some others it's just one day, or it's a kind of a rotating one day for certain departments because of what they do. I would still say that is your competitive advantage as an employer for job seekers, that you are really shooting yourself in the foot for prospective employees if they don't see some sort of flexibility or hybrid or remote option. Even if it is just that one day or whatever. It's still better than no days. They're still more likely to look at your jobs and probably be interested. And obviously, because we are talking about best places to work, as an employer, when you fill out the demographic, the intake for the consideration process, as an employer, you have to list a lot of your policies and procedures. And one of the questions always is, do you offer some sort of remote or hybrid work option? And if so, what is it? So obviously, those that are saying no, they don't or they can't. I'll be honest, I don't think that they're making the list these days, because I think it is such a big differentiator between overall engagement and satisfaction as an employee, or not. So I do realize that there are some industries that will never, and some roles that can never necessarily have remote or hybrid options. It's just not the way that they can do their work. But I would say that if there's always an option though for most roles. So if you haven't, or you're not, or you want to encourage people to do it, I think you've got some stuff here to take with you, right? That you can use as your backup business case to maybe implore them to consider some more options there. This encouragement of time off kind of goes back to that accountability that video was trying to express a few minutes ago, and something I think that we're kind of guilty of probably as a group, is that we need to normalize people using their PTO, and talk about people using their PTO. I had an organization that the managers met with their employees like weekly or biweekly anyway, but once a quarter, the managers were required to ask their employee during those touch spaces when their next scheduled PTO was. And obviously that was also to help with, workflow and prioritizing projects and things like that for when people were out of the office. But the other reason was to remind people to take their PTO, and to feel like it is a very normalized thing to talk about. I'm going to be out these days in June, or I'm taking a long weekend next weekend, or whatever. And so it kind of created that intentionality and kind of created that accountability structure where the manager had to ask them every quarter, what's for this next quarter? When are your PTO? What days do you have planned for PTO? And I think too, back with the mental health point that I made earlier, I think too, encouraging people to take mental health days too, right? Like not just our quote unquote sick days that we used to take. I think that we need to tell people that, if you need a break or you feel burned out, or you just need a day to regather or gather yourself, that should be okay to do. Another thing too, and I think we're probably all guilty of this, is actually, stepping away from lunch and taking our breaks. I know that we certainly all probably are guilty of just working through lunch or trying to, stuff our face really quickly in between a meeting because we look up and it's 2:30 and we haven't eaten yet or whatever. So try to normalize the break thing, and encourage people to do that. And then, like I said, some sort of like no email, no text kind of after hour, or some sort of boundary setting policy maybe around just the expectation of these are our quote unquote core work hours. People are not expected to do things after a certain time. It would really have to be an emergency for you to be contacted otherwise or whatever. And again, a lot of this is normalizing things, right? And even getting the leadership to sign on to all of this as well, because they need to model these behaviors with their teams. I think just a promotion of the culture of well-being is really important too, and to make sure that we're training all our managers about work-life balance and how to model and encourage. Because like I said, most people are looking at their one-up and looking to see what they're doing more than anybody else. I think we need to recognize and reward healthy boundaries too, and not glorifying overwork. So I don't know if you have rewards and recognition programs at your organization, but I think that sometimes it's okay to reward and recognize people for doing the right thing in terms of taking a break or taken that vacation, or they just finished a wildly successful project and now they're going to be off for a week, I think you can celebrate that. And then obviously this goes to the next point about EAPs and employee resources. But, if you have some sort of counseling services or something like that to offer people if they are experiencing some degree of stress and burnout, I think just normalizing mental health and burnout, I think are really important, go a long way. It kind of leads into the next one, which is all about health and wellness programs. I'm sure that you guys probably have an EAP through your benefits and things like that, but providing people with the resources and reminding them that the resources out there. I think it's so funny that we're like, well, we have an EAP or we have this or we have that, but people's a lot of employees' ability to recall that information is not as maybe great as we would like to see. I think there's I don't know, a sort of amnesia around what we offer to people until they need it or something. But I think we should probably try to publicize the fact that you do have resources for people to utilize. And a lot of that health and wellness goes back to the physical as well. So I don't, I have had some clients that have more budgets where they can supplement or subsidize gym memberships or have on-site gyms and things like that for the physical aspect. But if you can bring people on to do things like yoga or massage or whatever, once a quarter, that's great. I've had people that have just done step challenges, right? As a team, that's their thing. They take 20-minute walks or whatever, or 15-minute walks 2 times a day as a team or whatever. Those kinds of things, to get them off the desk and moving, and hopefully moving their body will help with their work-life balance or their perception of burnout or stress. Another recommendation is also offering people the time away from work to actually work on development. So I know you guys are kind of doing a development session right now, but it's great that you can do that during work hours, but I'm sure there's, been some things over the years that you've kind of felt like, oh, I'm going to have to do that on the evenings or the weekends. And I know that sometimes that puts a lot of stress and undue pressure on people too, because they're thinking, oh gosh, how am I going to get it all done? So if you do have some sort of learning certification, training, program or reimbursement or whatever you may be doing, to maybe talk to employees about you can take time during the day, your work day to work towards that goal, that it doesn't have to be an all weekend thing forever, how many weeks or months it takes to be certified or finish the course or whatever. Another big shift, if you're not doing this, but I've noticed, and for good reasons, in the last couple of years, is that the family-friendly benefits really go back to more your policy. And I've seen such a huge expansion on parental leave policies and what constitutes parental leave. Just there's so many ways that families exist now that having very open kind of broad policies around adoption or fostering or whatever the case may be, offering way broader definitions of having a child or raising a child or whatever. And then with the parental aspect of it, it was always maternity leave or whatever. And I've seen a real concerted effort around just broadening that to be parental leave, period. And if you have the ability and you don't have to kind of cap anything, it is nice if you don't have to make it continuous leave. I mean, I've had some folks that have really, again, kind of gotten creative around allowing them sort of intermittent parental leave to deal with whatever's going on that first year in particular. Or I don't know if you have any spouses that work at the same organization or partners that work at the same organization, but allowing them to take it at different times can be really helpful. And if you can encourage that, that's great. And another one with the family friendly that I didn't put on here too is it's not just parental leave, but it says caregivers. Caregivers is just generalizing that as well, because there's a lot of people that are in that 30 to probably 55, 60 age group right now that are still maybe raising and supporting children, but also taking care of elderly parents or aging parents. So really being flexible for those folks as well. So, we sometimes have a lot on our plates just besides children, right? You have other members of your family that may be dependent upon you for some sort of support. And so really leaning into the fact that elder care or parental care is a thing, as we have an aging work population, and being supportive and inclusive of those people as well, and how we're writing policies or how we're administering policy, and taking, kind of requests into consideration. Any questions or comments, or this is where I'd like to ask you guys for like your feedback or things that you may have used or gotten creative about, or I don't know.
Chase, I
Yes.
really like you talking about multicultural and multi-aged
Mm-hmm.
families, because I think sometimes people forget about that people
Mm-hmm.
are in a sandwich situation between children and adults and older parents. This is
Mm-hmm.
important to remember. Also, between cultures, because every culture take rest and respite in a different way in understanding. Yes, and I really appreciated you talking about simple distraction in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
because I think even though people try to do it, flexible hours and hybrid and all this stuff, unfortunately, people are not getting happier according to our statistics. Yes,
Yes.
because I think sometimes for some people, even they have these flex hours or working from home ability, they are not using it right. They are
Mm-hmm.
not taking advantage in the right way. They try to multitask, they try to do different stuff instead of taking time frames and focus on work, and then after work to focus on the family. They mix it, and as a result they actually report even more tiredness and more um, hours of work. But I think it's also about productivity. I think it's a
Yes.
very good point you touched in the beginning. Thank you for that.
Good, thank you. Yeah, Simon Sinek, I think I talked about him in one of these previous ones. He's a social psychologist, has a podcast and video series and stuff. He has a story about two lumberjacks that are chopping wood in a forest, and they work, the same amount of hours every day, except for the one leaves for an hour and he goes away. And so at the end of the day, though, they still have the same amount of wood chopped. So the other lumberjack gets curious one day and just says, like, "Hey, like, what's your secret? How do you go away for an hour every day, and still chop as much wood as I do?" And the lumberjack that leaves every day for the hour says, "Well, I go home and I sharpen my axe." So, again, yes, it's utilization of your time in a good way, to recharge and rejuvenate, and that way you are hopefully more productive on the other side. There's another point though to that I was going to say about prioritization. Oh, the urgency culture. Like, I don't know about you all, but I'm guilty of this too. It's like I think we are pinged and dinged and called and text and whatever every day. We have all these notifications on all the time. Of course, they're always blinking red too, which is a great probably um, visual cue too. But I think that we all have this like knee-jerk reaction that everything is like house on fire urgent, and it's not necessarily. And I think that urgency, that need to respond, is a hard habit to break, and kind of putting that undue pressure on ourselves that everything is a top priority when really maybe we just need to reorganize some things and to make it all work. I'm guilty of that for sure. Um, what else? Anything else? Any other things that you guys have tried, or things, maybe creative things that you guys have done? I'm curious because, like I said, I've got some anecdotal experience working with folks, but I'm always curious to hear what other people have done that has worked. Um,
Hey Chase, this is Ashley. I'm sorry I missed the first half, but the
hey,
second half has been great. I appreciate it so much. Um, I just wanted, I know some of our members have really found some ways to provide that flexibility in healthcare, which, isn't the most flexible sector,
Exactly. Yes.
you know,
Uh-huh.
right, by like doing 410 so that they can have, Fridays off or flex schedules, or, maybe it's doing their notes from home if they're in a clinical setting. So I know that there's some flexibilities out there that I'd love to hear too, but I can share from the PCA a couple of things that we've done is we do a steps challenge in June.
Mm-hmm.
And our team loves it. We get a lot of people that participate in it. And I think that it helps different departments within our organization, kind of have some common ground and something to talk about. And it kind of brings people together, and that's been really cool. And another one I heard, Chase, I don't know if this was you, might have been Chandra, I think it was at Hannah Resource Group, but I loved this idea of protecting some time on people's calendars Monday morning to try to help resolve Sunday scaries, because I think a lot of us can be guilty on Sunday of feeling like we've got to take some time that day and get ready for the week. And I loved the idea of guarding some time Monday morning so that people felt like they could get ready for work while at work, instead of having to cut into
Yes.
their weekend.
Yes. I think that was us, because it's kind of like when I said I had that client that really didn't do Friday meetings to allow people to catch up for the week and not make them feel like they're, trying to rush out the door on Friday to enjoy their weekend. I think it was us because we don't set meetings on Monday mornings for that purpose, so that people can kind of ease into their week, and get things done that they may need to get done before things really get rocking and rolling. But that's what works for us, right? That may not be possible at every organization, because I realize, like you said, if you've got some clinical areas, I'm sure that's a little bit more challenging. But try experimenting with things too. I will say that's the biggest thing. You know, I think when you experiment with some of these tweaks or changes to policy or how we do things or whatever, and then try to gauge the response and try to see what, if it continues to work for people, great. If you end up having problems with it, then maybe you'll pivot and do something different. But just trying some of these things, I think can, at least seem encouraging to the employees, like, oh, like they're listening to us about work-life balance, or they're making this a priority, even if the things that you do to support people in their work-life balance may look different year over year, or sometimes even month to month, I guess. So just some experimentation around all this is a great thing if you have the ability to do that, and then tweak it as needed and kind of make the adjustments. Anything else? I'm going to just end with something that it's not to negate anything that we've just talked about, right? But it is to just remind people that, work-life balance, and the concept of balance in life is a very aspirational, existence. Like, we all would like to feel balanced and productive and fulfilled in all these different aspects of our life. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Ziegler's Wheel of Life. Anybody ever heard of the Wheel of Life for Ziegler? Well, the theory is that, these are the 7 domains or dimensions that most people, most humans, kind of give their energy, effort, attention, engagement to, right? So you got your spiritual, your physical, your intellectual, your career, financial, your social, and your family areas of your life or your existence as a human being, right? So the concept of having it all, and what Ziegler would argue is that we can't ever have it all, right? You can't have all 7 feel 100%. It's usually 4 to 5 out of the 7 at any given time, but that doesn't mean that you can't, at different points in your life, still pick up, 6 or 7. It's just that you may, at different points in your life, based on circumstances, be giving more to 5 than you are the other 2, but those other 2 may come back. So, it's hard to have it all, literally, but you're only going to do 5 particularly well. The other 2, you're going to have to kind of skimp on or sacrifice to make the other 5 happen. So again, I mean, not to say that work-life balance doesn't help with all of that, trying to, make sure that all the buckets are full in all 7 dimensions, but it's just also not realistic for people to think that they can have all of these things at any given time perfect, or in a in a state where they'd like them to necessarily be. So, I just try to keep it real or realistic that work-life balance is super important. It definitely helps us feel fulfilled in areas around our career and hopefully our financial well-being. But there's other more important areas of life that we have to devote time and energy towards. And unfortunately, to make it all work, sometimes we'll have to make some sacrifices in certain areas to make it all work. So that wasn't trying to end on a downer, but just being realistic. When I discovered Ziegler's Wheel about 10 years ago, I was like, okay, this makes me feel so much better when I don't get to the gym as much as I would like to, that physical one, right? Or whatever. And it's usually because I can say, well, in one of these other areas of my life, I'm doing very well, or I'm succeeding or exceeding or whatever the case may be. It just kind of made me feel less guilty, I guess, of trying to have it all. It made me feel a lot more content and a lot more human, that it's okay to kind of maybe not have it all. Okay, well, if there's no other comments, questions, or concerns, I'm trying to look at the screen. I don't see any comments in the chat. I see emojis. Okay. Do we have, yeah, okay, I see emojis, but I don't see chat. So I guess if there's no other questions or anything like that, then I will see you guys in May. Is it already May? It's May. See you at the end of May in a month. And I don't remember what the topic is in May, but I guess it'll come out soon. And I don't know if it's me or somebody else for the May topic, but maybe I'll see you in May. But it might be another speaker. But again, if you have any questions or comments or want some sort of follow-up, feel free to reach out to me. But I'll send this to Ashley after the session today. But I appreciate your time and your participation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chase.
Thanks.
Jay.
Thanks.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.